Hello, and welcome to the Green Grassroots of Football with me, Andy Glover.
Me, Mark Grinter.
And I would just like to thank our sponsor, Rachel's Bookkeeping, for all of your bookkeeping needs. So, before we head into the pod, my usual quote. And it's a long quote, so I'll shorten it a bit. Let it go. Let it go. Can't hold it back anymore. I don't care what they're going to say. The cold never bothered me anyway. Now that was Elsa Arendal, who I believe plays in the Norwegian Women's League, the top Syrian. At least I think that's what she does. I might be wrong there. You might have another opinion. Anyway, so I might not quite be true. Anyway, so as you might have gathered, we're talking about the cold weather, or at least cold weather against warm weather, and actually, when should we play football? So, I was reading a thing on Team Grassroots, actually, Mark, about frozen pitches.
Yeah.
And they were saying, these were the key things. So, what do you think? So, frozen pitches, the first thing we have to look at, is it safe for everyone, and is the forecast safe?
Yeah. So, safety is a priority.
I mean, that's the key thing. I suppose that's the key thing. Is it safe? I mean, when we talk about safe, though, what are we talking? Are we talking about the weather itself? Because I've seen wet pitches which are safe to play on, but it's hailstones, it's thunder, it's light. So when we're talking about frozen, what are we talking about?
Well, again, safety. I think you have to. For me, safety on if it's the weather, we take away the pitch.
We're talking about frozen here. What are we talking about safety-wise?
If it's safety-wise, again, if it's anything worse than an amber weather warning, then you don't do it. Otherwise, even if it's yellow to some degrees and stuff, then you play. I think we're getting to the point. It is not just football and a lot of things that it's a very overly cautious on it. Almost any excuse. I walked down here today, it's probably 0, -1, but because there's not the wind chill, if you were playing football out on that, on say, like, grass pitch, in fact I walked on some grass and I didn't think it was that frozen, but you were walking and stuff, you were running about, I guarantee you'd be warm. There's not that wind chill, it's quite still. First 5 minutes they'd be cold, and then that'd be it. That's granted, I would say that's probably above 5 or 6.
As a youth grassroots team, you say we go from 3-year-olds to 18-year-olds.
Yeah, so
we also have to gauge.
You have at different age groups. I mean,
the age group,
classic example, I would say, the way I'm looking at it, for say Saturday, if we're allowed to train and stuff, hopefully we are. The temperature is somewhere between 0 and 3, but there's no wind and it's sunny. I will not be training the Wildcats because they're young. My under 11s will be training.
Yeah, so I've got the under 9s, so they're a bit younger than yours, and I'm in that sort of in between area where there's a few who would turn up and go, it's all right. And there's others who'll turn up and within 10 minutes will want to go home. Yeah. So, I'm still that in-between area.
But there's also, I think, as coaches and grassroots, and I'm sure you do it and I do it, I will, God no, again, you almost have to be treating as if the parents are stupid. You say, it's cold out, wrap them up. I mean, I put that down and I put it in my messages and I think, well, they know it's cold. They must look at it and thought, what is it? I thought it was 20 degrees out there. She was going out there. So, I mean, I think, yeah, it gets.
Or when they come down and they've got coats hanging off their shoulders. And I have to admit, for those who know my granddaughter, she is the worst for it. You tell her, put it over your shoulders, I'm not cold. Put it over your shoulders, I'm not cold. Yeah. 5 minutes later, where are you going? I'm freezing.
Yeah. So, but again, it's like, but they have to learn lessons.
Yeah.
And again, part of the football. So from a safety point of view, if the ground's okay, and for me, if it's above freezing, there's not a wind chill, there's not a weather warning,
You think that's safe, that's
They're
fine.
fine.
So the next question then they say is it currently playable? So by that, I suppose they mean the actual solidity of the pitch in terms of the freezing. So what people say about taking a stud, what depth are they talking about?
Exactly. I mean,
because you have sliding tackles. There must be a certain point where the slide will go through the mud and then it hits hard ground, doesn't it? So
I think
is it like putting coins in the ground? What are we talking?
For me, as I said, as a qualified ref, it is literally, is there any give in the ground? If it is, if you're thinking, like, I'm standing on concrete and stuff, I wouldn't play it as a match. If I was coaching and training and I dare said did a non-tackle, then I would probably go ahead. Because again, people seem to forget there's a lot of futsal. There's say 4G. Well,
as we discussed on our previous poll, even they freeze.
They freeze. So you have to, again, you look at what that give. That a 4G pitch isn't going to take a stud because it's not due. It has,
and also even at our level, there's teams that we know of. I think you do it as well, where you'll have 2 sessions in a week where one focuses more on fitness.
Yeah.
So if it is frozen, it could be okay. Tonight is going to be the fitness one.
Yeah.
So it's not about the contact.
Technical. You can do technical. You could do.
So you're not worried about physicality of sliding in. No. It's just simple.
If I was reffing a game, if there's, it'd be hard. Even if it's reasonably hard, I think again you look at it. Well, it just has to be safe. Yeah, a slide. There are certain pitches you think we will. I mean, because you can get to a point, which we'll probably get onto later, if it's a bit of rain or it's too soft out there. I mean, it's not a bloody mattress. You're out there to do an outdoor physical sport. And I know they're kids, and they are. And again, it depends on age groups.
Yeah, again, that's right. You have to bear that in mind. 3 to 18, you have to bear that in mind, yeah.
And I know there has to be, and there isn't really a definitive guideline as far as I'm aware. So it's common sense, and I think there's a lot of common sense goes out of the world. You'll get, no matter what, and I feel for coaches, refs, groundsmen, people like that, everybody's got their own opinion, and you can't make it right all the time. I mean, I think there's even Premier League games up to that standard where they call it off mid-game. It happens and things change. So you have to look at it. I think the safety, obviously, is the priority. So you go by the Met Office weather warnings.
Well, that's the next thing I was on their list, on the team grassroots thing. Is there a weather warning in place either now or whilst the game is on? So I mean, I'll be honest. I don't check weather warnings. I mean, the only time we've ever had that was actually this season last year, as in 2024, when Somerset FA actually did put out on their. There was a red one. They actually put out on their feeds. Yeah. We do not expect anyone to be playing because of the weather. That's unusual. I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Well, the red ones are becoming more and more prevalent. Yeah, personally, I've got weather apps on my phone and I'm checking them on a regular basis. And I will make the majority on the weather calls on those decisions. And generally, I personally think I've probably made, I give myself 1 or 2 bad calls a year on it. Otherwise, you're there or thereabouts. And the other thing you do have to think about, said again, it will depend. It's the age scale of where they are. Is their enjoyment? If it's too cold and they're stood there freezing, like you said, after 10, 15 minutes, they're going to be crying. You could put them off it for the rest of their life. So that's never worth it. And again, I think you have to tailor them. It's like you said, if on Saturday, I mean, we're on my under 11s are either going to train on the grass or we're going to go onto the hard course. So we'll be training on concrete. So either all those training sessions, because it's either going to be on grass, which is going to be pretty hard, or concrete,
even harder.
Will be even harder,
or maybe not.
will be fitness and technical.
Yeah,
there will not be any tackling. There will not be anything. But the one thing they will be doing is moving. They'll be staying warm. There won't be no standing still. There won't be it'll be high intensity fitness, but with maybe lots of ball touches. Not tackling and defensive, be more setting up defensive lines, moving as defensive units, and stuff like that. So you could do stuff like that, which you couldn't do with the 3-4-year-olds to keep them entertained and keep them moving. So for me, it's the key, as in a lot of these things, is common sense. And when it gets to the 50-50 calls, well, you're going to please half the people and annoy the other half.
Yeah. The next one they've got here is, will the pitch thaw in time? Now, I come back to one I think I've mentioned it before. We were playing a previous, not our team, but one before that, or even one before that. We were playing away at Henbury, and of course, the older you get, you move to the afternoon. And we'd gotten there, and half the pitch was still frozen, half the pitch was thawed. And the ref got there and said, let's give it half an hour. And we did, and the sun slowly got across the pitch. And it was a 2 o'clock kickoff, and come 2:30, the whole pitch was in sun. He walked it and said, "Yep, happy with that." Yeah. So you know, is the pitch going to thaw? Has it thawed, or is it going to thaw? And is it just a matter of going, let's delay it, let's just hold back a bit?
And it will be fun. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think
which is less of a chance for the morning games. And I noticed that in terms of the girls' football, I think all matches are mornings, whereas with boys' football, the older they get, they move to the afternoon, which does tend to give it a bit more of an opportunity.
It gives it more time, but again, by 10:30, they should be all right. I mean.
Well, this Henbury game, we kicked off at 2:30. Had we kicked off at 1:30, we had no chance.
Yeah, again, but was there tree bush? I don't know.
But again, it was like the sun was going across the pitch with shadow and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's the key. You said if it's a sunny day, if it's been cloudy in the morning, you've got less chance of it thawing. But again, it's common sense.
But if you think it's going to thaw, it might be a matter of just say, even in the morning, it doesn't matter going, actually, let's just hold off. Let's just wait the kick-off. Leave it a bit. You know, because that's perfect. If you think it's thawing, that's just a matter of just waiting. Isn't it? That's an easy call to make. Another one is, what's the temperature forecast now, overnight and during the game?
Yeah.
So if it's -10 now, and overnight it's -10, and during the game it's -10. Oh, well,
it's point. I say for me, the cut-off point is 0. So if I'm trying, so I can look at my thing which I had out. So at the moment, if we say our scheme on a Sunday, we are looking at on Sunday it starts at 5 degrees, so that should be absolutely fine.
That'd be fine, yeah.
I tell a lie, I'm a week ahead. So make sure obviously you're looking at the right date.
Oh yeah, make sure you get the right day.
And again, it'd be one of these. I would think it should be alright. It said it's freezing at about 9 o'clock. By 10 o'clock it's 2, and then 3. So pitch is probably going to be hard.
Because that's only a small rise, and of course in the ground itself, will that start to thaw in that time?
But it's sunny. That's key. If you get a bit of sun on it. But again, the temperature, say the day before, from 9, it doesn't dip below freezing. And obviously freezing is when, even if it's 1-2 degrees. So from at the moment, say 9 o'clock on Saturday morning, it doesn't go below freezing. Now for me, it doesn't rise a lot. It won't thaw a lot, but it'll thaw enough.
Yeah,
it's not again a deep freeze. Whereas tomorrow, if you were playing tomorrow, it doesn't. Again, it's -2, so it's -2, so it's that slightly harder.
I think the issues here is going to be the overnight weather, how cold it gets, and how much it can warm up in that time.
So but it's
I
said. I mean that'll be closer to your 50-50s. I think generally most people will be on.
Yeah,
you will get some off, and you'll get some parents who think it should be off, but the majority, I think, would probably think they should be on.
And then the last one on this short section here is, what time is the kickoff, and how far are the opposition travelling?
Exactly.
That's the other key issue I think we've got to consider on frozenness. And
again, I think with now, probably where we've got an advantage over even 20 years ago, certainly the 24 to 72 hour forecasts are more accurate. So you've got a good idea of what's going to happen. And families have got lives, and I think most families would appreciate an early call.
Yeah.
Now, if the early call ends up being wrong, you've probably got a bit more thing that you made the early call. It's the 50-50 calls on the Sunday morning are the ones which wind people up, I think.
But I also go back when I started 30 years ago. A mobile phone was a rarity.
Yeah.
So you had to make the call to the manager's home phone, who then had to phone round everyone else's home. It wasn't a matter of, we're leaving in 20 minutes, quick WhatsApp message, everyone got it in a second.
Yeah.
You're having to phone every single, or phone up somebody who then phoned 5 others. Who phoned
and I think, again, 30 years ago, you'll probably know, there were more games that were on that are now called off.
Mm. Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean,
definitely.
So it is a bit of swings, and and I think it works in its favour. And it goes, obviously, the facilities are better. You even look at, say, back to the 70s, 80s. I say 30 years ago. It's nearer 50 years ago now. But around the if you go around the 80s, even first division pitches as they were then, February, March were pretty much all mud.
Yeah. You can look at the videos on YouTube and see them all.
So I've seen games, like I said, Liverpool versus Arsenal, Liverpool versus Man United. It'd get bloody Fries versus Keynsham would get called off, and yet they were out there playing, and it was, and obviously the great going back in the 80s was the yellow footballs.
Yeah.
Well, the snow going there, we'll get a yellow football, then you can see it and get on with it.
Absolutely.
Now it's, hang on, there was 2 flakes of snow about 20 miles north of it. Well, game's off. Yeah,
it has definitely changed. Okay, moving on from that, some key tangible considerations. Wind chill.
Yeah, wind chill's important,
That can make a massive difference,
especially here.
I mean, we for those who know Somerdale, you'll know how open it is. For those who don't, we play. It's a floodplain, but it's a very open floodplain, and when the wind blows across it, it really does blow across it and can get very cold, can't it?
They said it's probably 0 out there now, but because there's no wind, it's
okay.
It's all right.
You can live with it.
You're walking down, and like I said, after 5-10 minutes you're playing football, it'll be fine. If it was, I've known it out there 10-12 degrees and blowing a gale and a bit of rain, and they're a lot colder,
and
they ain't never going to warm up.
And the smaller players, if you're not really paying attention, or you're not thinking about it properly, those smaller players especially can very quickly get hypothermia.
Yeah.
Or the second one, frostbite. Frostbite can easily happen, and the extremities, fingers, toes, ears, noses. I know it takes a while, but if you're not thinking about it, you're just going, it's game. Well, when I was a lad, I played and all that, and the young lads, and not really watching them. And it's really cold with the wind chill factor. So as managers, we have to be aware of, as a duty of care, you have to watch out for.
But again, I do think parents said, the messages will go out, wrap them up more.
Yes,
if they come in with their short sleeve, I don't know, they've been given the Everton kit for Christmas, and they come in just their shorts and the Everton short top sleeve, and they're just stood there. Well, yes, as a duty of care, you will encourage them to. But if the parent then comes to me, they got cold. Well, what do you think was going to happen?
Yeah,
I mean, if I've given out a message, Under Armour, I don't mind, and I do. I say I don't mind if they wear coats or all sorts if it's cold. And then we'll make the sessions shorter if it's on and stuff like that.
But what about during the game itself, coats?
I don't mind it for the goalkeepers.
See, now I've had an argument with the referee. We had a league game.
Go on.
And I had an argument with the referee because my goalkeeper, I put her in a coat, and the referee said, she got me in proper kit. And I said, no. And I argued with her, and I said, it's going to get cold. I have a duty of care to keep it. It was raining, it was cold, and I said, I'm not going to let her get cold just because.
Was the coat on top of the goalkeeper's kit?
Yeah, she was wearing, yeah.
So I would make sure what I've got in my kit bag is an oversized thing. So even if they got the thickest of coats on, But you chuck a big goalkeeper's top on top of it, doesn't matter what they got underneath.
Yeah.
They've got the kit on.
I never had that. She had her kit, and I said, "Put a coat on because it's going to be cold."
I mean, I think
I argued the top of the referee because I'd rather her. And in the end, she faced 2 shots in 40 minutes.
And again, it's common sense which say refs. I said I can't speak, but a lot of common sense comes into it. You're at that age, under 8's what they were last year.
Yeah.
The likelihood of
girl.
the zipper or anything that one of them would pull it and cause because they've got that hold of it and being that could cause it because you got
No,
the zip.
she was arguing about wearing the correct kit. Cover.
Which is in the rules.
It is in the rules. I was arguing from a
rules.
health and safety perspective, and I would argue again. In the end, the ref gave up.
But
I wasn't going to accept it.
As the ref and the appointed ref, it is within the rules.
Yeah, I stand in front of the league and I'd argue my point.
Yeah, I mean,
7-year-old girl getting cold. I wouldn't accept it.
Like I said, I would have and maybe get a bigger
something
size
to consider.
top.
Yeah, that's something to consider. Get an oversized top they can wear over their jackets and coats. Absolutely, yeah.
But again, I think somewhere where the FA doesn't have, especially for goalkeepers, because if it's a one-sided game and your goalkeeper stood there and, like you said, she had 2 shots, and you're stood there for an hour and it's
raining, it's windy.
The rain and wind, I think, is more potentially hurt for cold that you can't walk. If it's like it is tonight, 0, no wind, no rain, you can do a bit of and you'll stay warm, but yeah, that's horrible.
And of course, the issues is you've got to consider the comfort of the players. You get muscle stiffness, poor circulation, fatigue very quickly. All those things can happen, not just to the goalie, but all the players. And it's cold and frozen.
It can do.
You have to be aware of and be watching for. I know you say about the parents, but as managers, we have to be aware because we're the ones officially who've had that training and awareness to be able to look out and spot it.
You do, and you have, and you do keep them, and every child is different. How some react to it. The cold and heat is totally different. How child A and how child B reacts. So you do have to keep it. You do, and it is a bit. Again, it's the common sense.
But keeping on the health side of it, we've also got records on our players, so we're aware of those players who have health issues, and because of that, I think there's also that need to be aware of if a player's got asthma and things like that. Or conditions that can affect circulations, the cold will affect that more. So if you know you've got a player who is asthmatic, the cold are more likely to be that they're more likely the ones who are affected first. And it might just be a matter of keeping an eye on them and going, they're slowing down a bit, come off, put a coat on, warm up a bit.
Again, it's common sense. And again, with parents, it's common sense. And I know some teams is different if you haven't got enough players, but if you've got 3 or 4, ideally on a cold day, you want to take less subs. Let's be honest, because you don't want them sat around.
No.
And it amazes me how many parents, will bring their child with a cough and a cold on a cold, wet day, and you've got 4 subs, and you make it clear if they're not well, don't bring them because the likelihood is it's going to pass it around the team.
Yeah.
And B, they're going to not enjoy it, and yet they kind of like, well, right. So, and you feel bad because they're sat there, especially when they're coughing, and you're thinking, well, you shouldn't be here. So, again, it has to be. You have to take common sense. The way I look at it is, if you've got a fit and if everybody's fit and healthy, so we're not doctors, we're not qualified things. There's no weather warnings. The pitch is playable. There is no reason why a game can't go ahead. And then while you're there, I do agree. And again, what we do, I reckon I'd be amazed if there isn't any coaches, even though you seem an idiot when you're telling the parents, wrap them up. Or when it's hot, bring liquids and water.
Oh, that's another one.
And because you do care for them, and I always look at the children as if they were mine. And what you've got to do, like I said, what we'll probably do, and I'm sure it'll go around with every grassroots club, which again a lot of parents don't appreciate. There will be 2 or 3 of us on Sunday morning. We'll get down here at 8, half 8, like you said, because teams you've about an hour. So by half 8, you've got to make that final call, which is 2 hours before kick-off. But you'll come down, and the first priority will be safety.
Yeah.
So we'll come down here at 8, half 8. And like you said, you'll look at it, and like we said, well, in 2 hours, it'll on Sunday, if the forecast is right, there's no rain, it's not going to get the only thing it's going to improve. So it'll be a case of, will it improve enough? And, but you got to have a bit, like you said, 10:30 might not be playable, 11:15, 11 o'clock could be. So yeah, I would always say if you're parents or coaches and you disagree with the decisions when it's on or off, go and do it yourself.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. If you're not happy, join in.
Make
a difference. Become part of that team, and add your voice.
Yeah. And
first thing you'll find out is just how difficult it is. Yeah. But then you might also be that voice of change, and people might sort of go, "Oh yeah, you're right. That is a completely different thing. Hadn't thought of that." And because the people doing it are doing it to the best of their ability and knowledge.
You
might come with a different idea, and they go, "Oh,
yeah." And you look at it, and like I said, those decisions, and especially when it's 50-50, it is difficult. And potentially the forecast on Sunday is a 50-50. You also have to think as well on these 50-50s, like I said, where it'll be that they haven't played in a while, there's time restraints on everything. Is the forecast in the week after even worse?
Yeah.
So if you've got a pitch which you think, we could, you might have to go because next week's is going to be off because it's even worse. And potentially you could be off. So if you've got a pitch which is just about playable and the next 2 weeks is likely not to be, you're probably more likely to go for it. And you've got to be...
Lots of considerations, aren't there?
There is, and it's difficult. But as I said... Don't ever go.
But also, if you're not sure there, do you play on it and potentially ruin that pitch and then find out you've ruined it for 4 weeks when you've not played it?
You'd have been alright.
You've been alright for
yeah. And it's so
it's a tough balancing act, isn't it?
It is a tough balancing act to get it right. You do it. As I said, safety is the main priority. Yeah, the damage that you will cause if you do play on it. When it's frozen, you're not going to cause that much damage to the pitch.
So moving away from frozen into more just bad weather. So 4 years ago, the Climate Coalition suggested that grassroots clubs were losing an average of around 5 weeks per season due to poor weather and waterlogged pitches, while more than a third had lost up to 3 months worth of games. Now they've got to claw that back. So with winters becoming wetter and warmer, with substantial levels like rainfall and sort of pitches turning into mud heaps, obviously games going ahead and junior players playing in poor conditions, games are sort of dominated by raw power, which is obviously not healthy for the development of our talent and so on. There's no room to develop technical skills. There's also more chance of injuries because now you're looking at games at the end of the season. You look at the fixture list at the end of the season, and suddenly you're playing Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. With all those risks of injuries. So, what's the answer?
It's difficult. Again, I think for me, you got to if you can use common sense. If we stick to the season as it is, September to April. And you're going to get games called off. Play a Wednesday evening in September.
Yeah, get your midweeks in early. You could use at least the first 2 weeks. You can get a midweek game.
So you could get those. And I said, I don't know other leagues, obviously in and around the country, but in Bristol, I would say the average team official games, because we all put in friendlies and what have you. But league and cup games, most teams will play somewhere between 20 and 25 games.
Yeah.
As a round.
That's a good average, yeah.
So in theory, that's obviously half the year. If you went 26 is half a year, blah, blah, blah. So you don't have much leeway any case if you're just playing once a week. So, it's difficult. You could get the games in early. B, I think the FA and leagues can be more flexible. It baffles me, like, say, it's not this week, but say you had a forecast and you knew, well, Sunday is 10 degrees, not a cloud in the sky, pitch is in perfect conditions. Oh. And then you look at the forecast, Sunday it's -6, there's snow coming in, 3 foot of snow. Shall we bring the game forward 24 hours? And a lot of leagues won't allow you to do it.
No.
There's not that flexibility.
No,
well, I could play it then, but I can't. There's no way I'm going to be able to play it then.
Yeah.
And
they're fixed.
And that seems daft, is that, again, where we've now got this modern technology with weather forecast, they're not, certainly within 72 hours, it's not going to be exact, but you've got a rough idea of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
If you've got a pitch that's available, no, I don't see any harm in calling the opposition up and saying, hang on a minute, should we move it forward 24 hours? The players will enjoy it more because it's better weather forecast. The pitch is going to be playable, so we're not going to do any damage to that. And there doesn't seem to be any. I've never known that happen, ever.
Obviously, people have other things on.
They do, and it might not be practical.
Your taekwondos, your cubs, your scouts, whatever.
But you don't even try.
Yeah.
I mean, as a club here, say for the girls, certainly the girls, we train on a Saturday.
There's no reason it couldn't be played on a Saturday.
If the opposition were available to pick up a team, we'll just move it forward 24 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
That baffles me. I think certainly again because maybe the younger teams are. I mean, it's a weird one. It gets called cup games take priority. Though these spring, so you could get some of these spring. I think there was an autumn cup that went on to almost January.
Yeah, 1 year.
And then all the league games got put back.
See, I remember the Avon Youth League 1 year did say get your first 2 or even 3 cup games in those first 2 weeks of September, because they wanted the first 2 midweeks. They wanted cup games in those, and a lot of the teams were like, "Oh, I can't rearrange it." Or not. It was like try and get them in, and so many teams were like, "Oh no, I'm not going to put it in," and teams were almost refusing to do it.
Yeah,
and then we had a bad winter.
And then
they're moaning about the games.
And unfortunately, it's the ones that moan. I mean, you could almost look at your spring and autumn cup or whatever, say for the youth football, is a midweek tournament. And you could then, in theory, if you took out those 8 games, but they were in the midweek, so you did them in September.
Yeah, first 2 Sundays and first 2 midweeks in September.
Yeah, bang them
and it's done.
Bang them out, and then the last 2 in. Well, the first 2 in April, wherever Easter fits in April, so you're avoiding Easter, then that then gives you an average of, say, 14 league games between October, November, December, January, February, March. So you've got 6 months, 24 weeks. That gives you 10. You're almost playing every other week then.
Yeah, there's enough time there. Because at least, I know, certainly in the girls, they try to avoid the holidays as well. And there still was time to get games in.
But again, it's managers can take common sense. And to be fair, probably I think over this Christmas holiday period. Now, if you had enough players on December the 29th, 30th, whatever it was in between Christmas and New Year, was a perfect day for football. Now, you might have struggled. It might have been the odd. And what teams would get precious about? You could have, I don't know, an under-13s team who's got 14 players available, to plenty for an 11-a-side game, but Jimmy or Carl or whatever, their star player's not available.
So they're not
I
playing.
ain't playing it.
No, they're not playing, exactly.
And that's where then teams don't do themselves any favours. And that's where it's a... Yeah,
That's where the competitiveness...
You're back to common sense.
That's where the competitiveness causes it is a distraction, because you won't get the game in. We talked about 3G and 4G in the last pod. Obviously, the FA have invested millions, but the problem is, when it's frozen, it can still be... You're still playing in freezing conditions. You can still be playing in high winds.
But they freeze.
And of course, the other problem is a lot of the way those pitches have been funded through PFI, hiring them are still be prohibitively expensive.
They're expensive
for football teams.
And when it's cold, they freeze.
And for teams running on tight budgets, they're not. It's not an option for them. So it's all really good for people saying, as we did discuss it. Well, there's 3G pitches you can use. Well, if they've been put together at a high cost, a lot of teams can't afford to hire them. Or if you do, and it's a massive high wind blowing, it's still not exactly a nice day to play.
Well, I mean, again, I would say today wasn't too bad, but with -2, -3, and son Corey at Bristol City Robbins Foundation was training at the one near your house, at Whitchurch.
South Bristol.
It was off.
Yeah.
Weren't allowed to train on it. It was too hard.
Yeah.
That's a 4G pitch. That's used by Bristol City.
It's too too cold.
Couldn't do it. Too cold.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're coming near the end of this pod, but the last bit, summer. So while the idea of playing warmer weather would appeal to children and parents, moving the grassroots football calendar from, say, for example, March to October wouldn't be without issues.
Nope.
It clash with and obviously have a draining effect on summer sports such as cricket. I think you mentioned golf and tennis as
cricket,
well.
Golf, tennis, athletics.
The number of children playing football in the winter and cricket in the summer, shifts on the calendar, sort of directly compete each other, would affect participation levels at the time, with numbers that are already falling. And junior football would also be affected by withdrawal for family holidays. And some, obviously, they've got sun-baked pitches, potentially too hard to play on safely.
And again, the safety of...
But would that be any worse to losing the current raft of fixtures to the rain and frozen?
I would, again, it's slightly different. It's
last 5 minutes, what do we think about a summer?
I personally think it's impractical.
If there was no cricket, forget that last statement. If we moved, because Rugby League did it, and they're very successful.
They did.
So what if we moved the football?
Rugby League did it at the senior section, not grassroots.
Yeah, they're not.
Nope.
Okay. But if we moved to a summer as a summer sport, parents would love it, nice and warm.
Parents would love it when it's nice and warm. Again, when does it then get too hot? We've said about pitches being hard. If it's a hot, dry summer, when are they too hot and there's cracks?
Up, yeah, absolutely.
So I think you'd get as many games off then.
And what do clubs do to keep themselves alive in the summer?
And the winter.
But what do they do in the summer to keep themselves alive? What do they run?
Tournaments.
So you're going to run a tournament in the winter?
No.
So there is that issue as well. I mean, it's a nice idea, because I think winters are going to get colder, they're going to get wetter. There's going to cause big problems, and we discussed in the last pod about 3G pitches.
About cricket, again, this is a classic. Say here and stuff, and a lot of clubs run football and cricket on the same fields.
Yes, we do.
So if you're playing football and cricket at the same time, what are the staff doing here then between the months of September and April? What's this building doing? It just won't get used.
Study it closes down, sort of,
So I don't think it can. You can potentially change. Again, it's potentially maybe clever thinking. You could go September to argument's sake, say end of November, but again, November can be bad for storms, and then you're back. I personally think you could get away, if you were clever, of not just playing January. But as for the summer, again with cricket, again they're a bit more precious, I will say. But you can get wet summers.
I mean, in fairness, as a club, we've almost morphed into a club that trains through the summer, because we can't train in the winter because it's too wet.
Yeah.
So we've almost gone.
It's 24. It's all year round.
It is all year round, but it's not all year round because we find we can't train all year round because it's too wet and frozen.
Yeah.
So we kind of go, we'll play in the winter and we'll train in the summer.
And you sort of adapt. And then they've said there's no training here in June, which is fine. So we're going tournament and you go elsewhere because you do we try to get a lot of the training in throughout the summer. And you get the games in the winter. As I said, we've been fortunate. My juniors team, we've only had 2 cancellations so far this year.
I've had 2, home and away, and it's the same team.
So
typical, isn't it?
But it's and I would say this is going to be as I said, I think that thing of 4 or 5 weeks is probably going to be spot on. But
we had that bad one last year, but again this year we've only had rain. I think only one week, so
maybe
far,
2.
maybe 2. So
it's
cold, but it's not wet at the moment.
And that's I said it. And 30 years ago, you probably would have lost any. So, people are a lot more protective, a lot more thing. I don't think personally. I'd probably love the summer, but. Like you said, there's revenue. I just can't see how it can happen, and it can get if they're right with the climate change and it gets hotter. Well, you could also you could get. We run it down here with a tournament.
You'd have to have constant watering of pitches to keep them soft.
Yeah, that's going to cost money.
Well, not just that, but water in some areas is becoming more and more scarce. You think. There have been years where there's been hosepipe bans for 3, 4, 5 months.
And then you look at the reverse of what we're saying about when is it too cold? Well, when would it get too hot?
When is it too hot to play,
80 minutes of somebody running around in 25 plus degrees.
We've had
kids.
We've had summer.
Safe?
We've had 30-degree summers, haven't we? 30-degree summers, 4-month hosepipe ban. If you're going to play in the summer, you need to have that pitch that's wet and soft through the summer, which is doable, but as long as there's water on it. When there's a hosepipe ban with no water, you can't do it.
So if you get, say, June, and the temperature in the day doesn't drop below 25 degrees, you don't play in June.
People going down with heat stroke, and it's the reverse illnesses, isn't it?
So
it's a nice idea until you start looking into it deeper and going, well, actually, there's this issue. There's that issue. It's basically you reverse the issues and find it's exactly the same, just going the other way.
Different way, yeah.
Yeah.
So the only ideal solution, and if you need billions and billions of pounds, is indoor.
I think more. I was saying in the last one, more 3G pitches, which would allow for training, because it's very rare they're called off, apart from the really frozen times.
Yeah.
So more 3G pitches would be advantageous.
It would be.
And I don't know how much those cost. Those tennis ones where they inflate them.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they. But that's perhaps something like that. But you're right.
Most pro clubs have the indoor. You could get, but again.
But you think in Bristol, something like the Downs, where all those pitches are, to have indoor there and then up at Lansdowne in Bath. Exactly, yeah.
It's totally. I mean, so
let's carry on as we are then.
Yeah, well, to a degree.
But more investment in 3G pitches, I would suggest, as we discussed last time.
To be honest, again, not for the really young ones, the under 6s. So even I'd go under 7s below. But I reckon, again, if we go for my team, if the weather was bad, if it was raining, if it was cold, windy, blah, 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 my girl, every one of them would turn up. The only people moaning would be the parents.
Yeah, exactly. And not all of them. Some
not all the parents.
Some are down there loving it.
No, most of them are as good as gold. Unfortunately, the ones that moan are the ones that are the loudest normally.
Down here, it's fine. Go sit in the club.
Yeah, so I think the only thing that said my thing on it, it has to be safe.
Yeah, as long as you've done a risk assessment, even if it's just a rudimentary in your head, look around, walk around risk assessment, and you know you're happy, it's safe, it's not too cold, it's not too frozen, not too hard, there's no weather warnings in place, etc.
Yeah. So it's like
and you've given out the information to the parents, wrap up warm, bring this, bring that.
Yeah.
Or in the heat, make sure you bring water.
Yeah. Hydrated.
You've done your bit, haven't you?
Yeah. I mean, and if you're doing, I'll probably do it this Sunday, the pitch inspection. I'll get one or two. If there's, ideally, you want minimum of 2, maybe 3, because again, you could get somebody who's, I don't know, top of the table class, is walking or bloody playing it no matter what. So you might need somebody to say, nah.
Yeah.
But generally, most people I think, and it's not just us here, it's everywhere. When you see them, if you've got somebody who's willing to get up 2 hours, 3 hours before kick-off and get down there, their heart is probably in the right place.
Yeah.
They might get it wrong. Sometimes they will. They haven't done it deliberately.
No. Okay. I think on that note, we'll close this pod. Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you, listeners. And we'll see you next time. If you like this podcast, then please email us your questions, comments, random thoughts, anything you want to share with us at greengrassroots@gmail.com. You can contact Mark and Andy through X at Fry Club JFC, on Facebook via Fry Club Junior FC, and the Fry Club website is www.fryclubjfc.co.uk. You could also type out a fantastic review on Apple Podcasts or give us 5 stars on Spotify. You've been listening to a We Haven't Got a Clue What We're Doing production, produced and edited by Andy Glover.